half hour or so.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit longer.
Okay.
Cool. And then we'd be good. What is going on Facebook? If you are seeing this right now, I'm on with Rev Tink, and I want Sam. How do you say your last name?
Oh, the one on my Facebook is Anaviana.
Anaviana?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm on with Sam Anaviana, and the deal is that he is a Buddhist reverend, and I got questions. He's got answers, and I think that this is you've got your Rev Tank page, and then there's also just there's so much about Buddhism that a lot of people don't know. Let's tell the group and tell everybody how much you actually know. Why would I be coming to you for some information on Buddhism?
Why would you be coming to me? Well, I'm gonna imagine you have your reasons why you came and told me. You came to ask me about it, and I told you I was always open for a conversation with it. You know what I mean? Because I honestly don't know why. Let me ask you, why do you think I wanted to meet?
You're a Buddhist reverend. You've actually got like background. You've spent time in Korea. You've literally.
I learned a lot from
Like, so you're not like some dude that just like, man, you know what? I believe in some Eastern thought, and here's what I'm thinking on it. You were somebody who has actually gone through. What's funny, I remember when I asked you, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like a cool thing. And I was like, how hard is that? And you're like, oh yeah, that's not hard. But you've got like 12 years in it right now, invested in this. And this is
hold on. Let me go back. Let me make sure I gave you the right number though. Okay. Because I'm going to start from my very first part of my path, which is actually when my friend Patty and stuff like that got me into Buddhism. She was a friend of mine. She was a really good person. I miss her. Her name is Patricia Casarino. She was the one who got me into Buddhism, and she was the one who who told me where to go to introduce me on the Arisha Kosekai, which gave me that following into it. Okay.
What is what did you say? The Arisha Kosekai?
Arisha Kosekai. Arisha Kosekai is a lay Buddhist sect that practices practices at 16 something hundred. It's on Babcock in San Antonio, Texas. That was actually the first place I went into when it was concerned with stuff, and I met Reverend Nakamura.
Okay.
Yeah, that's who I met, and that's actually how I got started on my whole thing, learning as I continuously continue to go along.
Okay.
You know, and so basically what has happened that was the beginning of my past and everything else. And what got me about it was the funny thing was that I went into it because I wanted to learn to actually, be more peaceful, because I believe that Buddhist people were very much more peaceful.
Are they?
And you know what? I will say they are at peace, but they are not always peaceful. Okay. If that makes any sense. They are at peace, but peace is in there. And I think that what a lot of people also do not realize is that there was I began to realize how many misconceptions about Buddhism I really truly did have when I first started. And I reflect on that often, about how many misconceptions were actually out there that I was kind of like constantly wrong about, because I had to actually go learn about the religion. You know what I mean? I learned about it when I went to and then I went over there and I took the time to get in league with this one lady who was a
Sam, where'd you go? You went over where?
I was when I got into the Army. Okay. And when I got into the Army, I went to North. I was stationed in Korea when I went active duty. Okay. And so that's where I first actually began there, and that's when I started my path into Buddhism once I got from Rishu Kosekai.
Okay.
So I went over there to go see things, and one of my friends who was his name was Joe Kwan, and he actually was the one I met there as a Katusa. And he took me off to go to he was the first person taking me to the temple of the Jukisal order.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I went back there a few more times, and I actually got to meet one of the monks that was there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you came back stateside at some point, but
yep.
If I recall correctly, you actually went back over there and they recognized, or you got trained some more, and they recognized that you weren't joking around, and you are now literally ordained as a reverend, and you're looking to continue and grow your is it a church? Is it a following? What's it called?
To be absolutely honest with you, I'm not even going to go that far as to even, I wouldn't even say that. I would say family. I would say Sangha, because Sangha means community, which is
Right.
actually the third jewel of Buddhism, which is how much well, the third jewel of Buddhism is you take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And your Sangha is your community, your family.
Okay.
It is your communities around you.
Okay.
And I began kind of looking at a lot of the practical sense and applications in which can be done. And I found a disconnect in with people who didn't really understand certain things about Buddhism. It's because there's certain things that they don't see that translate into what they put into their everyday lives. So what I've decided to do at that point was I decided that it was easier for me to just go ahead and at least, you know what I'm saying, start with my own little corner of the world. Because in Buddhism, if Buddhism helps other people, then it doesn't matter how often it doesn't matter where you do it from. You can do it anywhere you choose to be at. And that means that you take the personal responsibility of that. You take a lot of you conduct yourself ethically. You have a very real sense about it. And what I try to do is I try to communicate through Buddhism. I try to use Buddhism to communicate, to be able to understand all the things around me, which is why I like being in all these different diverse groups. I get to learn a lot.
Right. One more thing I just want to stress again, the length of time that you have invested in this. This isn't fly by night. It is how long have you been?
2018 will probably be 2018 will probably be since 2000. Oh my, holy cow, wow, I didn't even think about that. I'm 35 now, and that goes all the way back to 12. Yeah, that's 14 years. That's about 14, okay. Yeah, 14, 15 years, yeah.
So, okay. So again, guys, I just stress this because, there's so many people out there that are just finding things or just saying that they believe in a something or another, and really, I guess, aren't believers, aren't deep in it. And, Rev Tank Sam here has crossed the threshold of being interested and curious, well beyond that stage and state. And why, that's one reason why I've decided to, reach out to him and try and have him share some of his insights, because there aren't too many people that I know personally that are A, willing, and B, who have been able to, I've met up with Sam a couple times, once in person, and is really able to give me immediate insights into any questions that I've had about Buddhism so far. And then, I mean, over I think a couple weeks ago, I had some questions. I'd just gotten done reading the Platform Sutra, and I had some ideas and thoughts. I was like, I can't even wait any longer. I had to ask Sam. I had to, Rev Tank here. I had to say, please help me understand part of this, this Buddhist way of thinking, this way of thought. And I don't even know if that was the question I had, but you were able to give me an answer right off the bat that made sense, and I was on my way, and it was perfect. And so, I've got questions about the Diamond Sutra, and I think that there may be other people who are interested in Buddhism who don't have a reliable, actual, tangible person. So you're real, which is really cool to be able to reach out to and talk to. And let's just talk. And I'll tell you why I chose the Diamond Sutra for myself as a place to go look for, and then we can kind of jump into it. So the Diamond Sutra, per my understanding, is the book that gave enlightenment to the 6th Zen patriarch way back in the day, and that's just another form of Buddhism that is towards it's in Japanese, right? It's Japanese. Zen is Japanese primarily.
Okay.
Buddhism, it's Mahayana, right? Am I right with that?
Yeah, Mahayana Buddhism. Yeah.
Okay, and then after that, so I was just curious. I'm like, well, you know what? If this is a book that has given somebody back in the day some enlightenment, what harm can it do for me to go pick it up and read it now? So that is why I chose it, but I have no idea what other importance the Diamond Sutra may have, what its original origins are, and you know, when we talk about, and there's many chapters in this book, but they're short chapters. And one other thing that I'll bring out there too is Sam also gave me a really awesome visual as to what a sutra is, right? So could you tell us what a sutra is, and then let's talk about the Diamond Sutra a little bit?
Okay. Well, first of all, I am going to leave out a couple of I'm going to throw out a couple of disclaimers, only because of the fact that I want to make sure that everybody understands that in the beginning of the time, irregardless of whether Reverend Tink is acting like anything, at the end of the day, we are all Buddhists and we are all still, therefore, every day we are beginners. So you understand that at this point, I will tell you from my specific point of view, as in nobody probably in Buddhism thinks this but me, even whether or not it's there. You see what I'm saying? So that's what I'm going to tell you. That's what that is. And the other part of it is I wanted to also tell you that from that, my interpretation is based off of a semi kind of rules of engagement with it, because what I'm doing is that as I'm looking at the numbers, Buddhism is a very symbolic religion. So very large and rounded numbers like 1250 that you see there, all of those were also conducted in the sense of Mahayana Buddhism. So I'm going to tell you from that perspective alone, which means that it may not be necessarily that number. In Buddhism, when you are talking about numbers like 5,000, 50,000, 40,000, those are eyed measurements ones. And the eyed measurement ones are based off this whole thing that a reasonable person would be able to stand there and justify visually seeing what may look like if someone was to go there individually and count all those people. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so in other words, it's like, and because it is symbolic, what that basically means is that they're trying to say all these large numbers. So when you're seeing that, anything that goes above certain specific numbers, they don't usually actually count there. They call it with actually myriads, codices, all of those kind of things. So understand that form of actual Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, tantric understanding is what's going to be implemented at this point. So there's going to be people like the Theravada Buddhists. People who are Theravada Buddhists are not going to necessarily agree with anything that I say, on the sole basis that this specific one priest that you're talking about, the disciple in which the actual one came out with, Theravada Buddhism does not actually. Hold on. Okay, there. It's not necessarily that. What was I going to say? That is not the. That's the system of measurement that's basically being used. It's basically being used off of that. Does that make sense? Does that platform make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so, and the reason being is because you're talking about actually going into the branches of mathematics and stuff like that. So that's what that is. You know what I'm saying? That's trying to give you a historic baseline, right, which is the reason why it's from all interpretation. So by this interpretation, that's what I'm going to be using at that point with that specific method, given everything that I can foreseeably translate and understand about that specific historical actual piece of recounting. You see what I'm saying? So the Diamond Sutra is meant to shatter illusions. It's meant to give you the understanding that you can see, lack of a better term, people who understand and take lessons and learn from the Diamond Sutra are capable of seeing through bullshit, is what it is. It's meant to help you understand that there is a translucent, it's to get rid of all of the smoke and mirrors, refocus the light, you can see exactly what's in front of you. That is the difference. That is what that one specifically is. This one is usually used for people who struggle, especially if they're going through the Bodhi path. The Bodhi path is the path of actual true forward enlightenment. It is when you choose to take the step to go, okay, I'm going to start practicing these things. And when I came into Buddhism, I wanted two things. And to be honest with you, that's where my attachments were. And my two specific attachments were with tranquility and compassion, because of all the things that I was going through, so I had to take that and gear that forward. The Diamond Sutra, what its specific mechanics are, is to help you refocus parts of your mind to accept things to be reasonable. That's what it is. A reasonable person, a reasonable understanding with things, if that makes any sense. That's the reason why it was meant to be shifted through symbolism. Symbolism is identifying that with it. So the numbers are not going to be historically accurate for those bean counters that want to sit there and say, how did he know that? Right. You know what I mean? Sure. So that's what that is.
Okay. So the Diamond Sutra was to just teach reasonableness.
Yeah, not so much reasonableness, so much as understanding that accepting things for what they are, because it has to reinforce a lot of the basic principalities of Buddhism, i.e., in other words, it is an incorporation of all of those to a specific point. It is basically like, okay, it's kind of like I'm going to explain this to you in one specific spot, and this is the only way I can explain it. You being somebody who went through high school, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When you go through high school, and when you went through high school back in the day, what they did is that your Spanish teacher, whenever they moved on to like another lesson, they already automatically assumed you knew the one that was there, whether you did or not was not their issue. It's like they automatically assumed that's what you knew from that step up forward.
Sure.
This is what the Diamond Sutra does. The Diamond Sutra, basically, for those people who sit and reflect, it's a reflecting, it's a balancing of all of those things that they've learned and all of those things that they've applied and all of those things that they are there when they look specifically at that Diamond Sutra. And then that's how they get their interpretation out of all of it. One of the things, like the questions that he does ask the Buddha, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
The questions that he asked specifically the Buddha at that point, that was the person who specifically he was speaking to. He was talking to Shakyamuni, which was actually the first Buddha at that point. So that's the historic mark right there.
Okay. Awesome. So, in terms of just the word sutra,
mm-hmm.
Give us the definition you gave to me, if you can recall it.
Oh God, I can't remember exactly which one was it, because we were sitting in front of the we were sitting at the restaurant, right?
Yeah. So what is a sutra? Like symbolically like a sewing, right? Like a
sutra. It's a sewing. Basically, sutra means thread.
Okay.
And what that is that what it is basically it's a complete thread, and it's what those thread and those fibers are actually rolled into and stuff. That's basically what that is. A Diamond Sutra, it represents the diamond is symbolism for the strongest gem on the planet. It's the hardest gem on the planet. It's got a hardness rating of 10. You know what I mean? There's not very many. There's really no gem stronger than the diamond. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We use it in tools and everything else. It's basically meant to be that one that will shine, and it's very hard. It's very rough. It's a very strong tool to have. It's a very strong thing to have in the head to help you exercise parts of your mind and keep them going. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like when you get all this stuff being thrown at you in the modern world, all this craziness going on and everything else,
right.
People start getting unnerved about it and everything. It's about disciplining the mind to be able to take things as they come.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I love it. So, do we want to jump into like kind of the first chapter? I'm trying to see if I can just share even, the first chapter on the screen.
Yeah.
It's only, a couple.
Yeah, all the chapters are really short.
Right, and so I'll just do a share screen. Share screen. So I'm sharing the screen, and I don't know if you can see it. If you just kind of, if we should read it out loud. No, we didn't really have a whole, thing planned here. Aside from, I wanted to introduce Sam, Rev Tank. I wanted to establish your credibility and your authority. I don't know if you've ever been called an authority before, so I thought that might be fun as well. And also just kind of talk a little bit about this sutra and maybe go over a little bit of this chapter. So, I'll read it real quick. This is what I heard. At one time, the Buddha was staying in the Jeddah Grove near the city of Sarasvati. With him was a community of 1,250 venerable monks and devoted disciples. One day before dawn, the Buddha clothed himself and, along with his disciples, took up his alms bowl and entered the city to beg for food door to door, as was his custom. After he returned and had eaten, he put away his bowl and cloak, bathed his feet, and then sat with his legs crossed and body upright upon the seat arranged for him. He
Mhm.
began mindfully fixing his attention from himself while many monks approached the Buddha, showing great reverence, seated around him. So, I mean, just kind of what are we doing here? What's happening?
Okay. Now, the okay, where exactly do you want me to start first? Like, that's my question, because this is very question specific. That makes any sense. So I need you to kind of kick me off with the question so I can specifically tell you where it's coming from.
Well, I mean, what is the setting? Is it just the Buddha kind of hanging out, getting ready to?
No, that is not what that is. Okay, now I see where you're at. Got you. Okay, no, what this is. Okay, do you notice? You know what I'm talking about? You notice when I sit in groups and I sit there and I go around and I look at it and I look at everybody. I'm gonna bring this home for you so that way you know exactly, so you can track 100% when you see things like this. Okay. What this is that that's a round that I actually was introduced to at the beginning in Risha Kosekai. It's called Hoza. And what Hoza is, and what I understand it to be, and what Hoza is that you get around in your community, you get surrounded around in your community, and what you do is you discuss the implementation of things. It's basically if it makes any sense, it's where Buddha is. This is a huddle, is what it is.
Okay.
Like your masterminds, the calm before the storm, the muster, when you're doing live feeds and doing interviews with when you're doing an interview with another person on your podcast and stuff, that is the same thing. That is called Hoza.
Okay.
That is when you get together and you start discussing. This is where it's like the think tank. It's like, okay, this is what's going on in our communities and everything else. That is the reason why he approached the Buddha with the specific questions that he did. And the reason why is because those were the concerns of the Sangha and himself.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
so he's approaching his group and getting ready to kind of take in what he's seeing and share a conversation with them.
right.
Okay. So you know what? Let's hop in then. So I love that. So let's just hop into the next chapter and then click to the next page. That's what I'm going to do. This one's a little bit longer. I'm going to read it anyways, guys. We'll see how these go. Chapter 2. After a time, most venerable monk named Subhuti, who was sitting in the congregation, rose from his feet. He uncovered his right shoulder, placed his knee on the ground, and I don't know, is placing his right knee symbolic versus his left knee, right? Which is
that depends on interpretation at that point. The reason why I'm telling you that is because there are specific rituals that they do when they bow the knees are supposed to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That is more of a traditional symbolic sense, in other words.
Okay.
And that was basically to understand that. And as far as I see, and like I said, my significance actually past that point was not something that I specifically actually paid attention to, if that makes any sense. I'm sure if I went far back enough, I could probably figure out that particular interpretation of it. But for me, what it interpreted into at that point was it was a specific exaggerated form of respect. It was meant to point out to whoever was going to be reading it that it was because I'm kneeling out of deep respect for the person I am now speaking to. That's basically what that was, because when the Buddha was there, he was the true enlightened one. And at that point, that's why they called him Shakyamuni Buddha, because they identified the name with his physical sense to be the actual internal Buddha, is what it basically boils down to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So he respectfully bowed, then addressed the Buddha. Most honored one, it is truly majestic how much knowledge and wisdom your monks and disciples have been given through your most inspired teachings. It's remarkable that you look after our welfare so selflessly and completely. Most honored one, I have a question for you. If sons and daughters of good families want to develop the highest, most fulfilled and awakened mind, if they wish to attain the highest perfect wisdoms, what should they do to help quiet their minds from drifting and help subdue their craving thoughts? The Buddha then replied, so it is as you say, Subhuti, monks and disciples have been favored with the highest favor by the Buddha. The monks and disciples have been instructed with the highest instruction by the Buddha. The Buddha is constantly mindful of the welfare of his followers. Listen carefully with your full attention, and I will speak to your question. If sons and daughters of good families want to develop the highest, most fulfilled and awakened mind, if they wish to attain the highest perfect wisdom and quiet their drifting minds while subduing their craving thoughts, then they should follow what I am about to say to you. Those who follow what I am about to say here will be able to subdue their discriminative thoughts and craving desires. It is possible to attain perfect tranquility and clarity of mind by absorbing and dwelling on the teachings I'm about to give. Then the Buddha addressed the assembly. We're going to actually stop there today so we can think about it just really quick too. Again, where we're at, kind of the scenario, and I think that you likened it to kind of like the Beyond the Storms or some of these masterminds, right?
Right.
So if you're not familiar with that, it's just people getting together and having a conversation. But in that conversation, we're going to get wisdom, right? Hopefully we share some wisdom in that.
Yeah, exactly, because your set of experiences and somebody else's set of experiences over time can connect. You see what I'm saying? It's all about the connection. The connection has to be there. And what it is with Buddhism is that it is a understanding of connecting and understanding exactly what it is that you're looking at, which is the reason why a lot of things were in forms of symbolism. Things were like myriads and codices and stuff like that. When you get into those kind of words that are being used at that point, and you look at the numbers that are behind them, the Eastern Asian culture was already into a rough estimate, and they're starting to hone in on the metric system, if that makes any sense. The metric system is being utilized at that point. So when you're looking at the actual verbiage that you're talking about, this is a more so, to me, in all honesty, I think this is a rough question, which what he asked in the first part, and it's because this is how do we still stick away with things, and what it is that this is the review of remember when I told you in the beginning that it was all about the compilation and understanding about certain things. The question he just asked him goes all the way back to the Four Noble Truths, and the Four Noble Truths are the first one is attachment leads to suffering. Craving thoughts is an attachment to something, and a craving is something that you have to want, and then it starts turning into a need, i.e. like addictions, addictive thinking, all of those things that incorporate that.
Right.
When you ask the question specifically the way this person did, right here, which is Subhuti, which is the actual disciple, because he's trying to look out for his people, and he's like, okay, this is what I need to know. The response from the Buddha at that point is the first logical, reasonable response at that point. Number one, while I have no reason to doubt you, are you sure that you're telling me everything 100% on the money? You're not lying to me. You know what I'm saying? Blah, blah, blah. This is how your situation is, right?
Right.
Because he's like, oh, my situation is... Do you really want me to tell you the honest answer to that question? And then he's going to go back and say yes. And then what's going to happen at this point is you're going to see it in the next 2 chapters. He goes back and he explains to him, this is why I told you this and this and this in the beginning when I told you attachment leads to suffering. If you keep constant, this is basically, are you sure you're not forgetting something?
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the best way I can translate it to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. So, I mean, the Buddha simply wants to make sure that the question is appropriate, and that nothing's being left out, right?
No, exactly. Because here is the thing. This is the reason why it is that way, because the actions create your thoughts create actions. Those actions and those thoughts become energies and wavelengths all the way out there. Karmatic conditioning basically says everything you put out there you're going to get one way or another, and because you believe in reincarnation, things can actually carry over with that. So what it boils down to is if you ask what you believe at that point is a supreme, if you give somebody else the authority or what have you to begin to speak on an answer of a question, you got to make sure you've exhausted every option that you have. So because he's going to give you another set of instructions on how to deal with this problem. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So he's like, okay, he's like, I'm going to tell you exactly I'm going to tell you exactly how all this is going to work, and you are going to need to execute, because this is going to be a whole new line of instructions now, because if you don't follow this right, that means you missed something else back up there, and you need to go back to when things last made sense.
Right. It's like a set of Lego instructions. If you don't start from the right page, you're going to fuck up.
Okay, let me help a lot of people understand something that I have learned through various costs. Okay. I'm going to give anybody who is interested in the understanding of Buddhism the real deal about it, just like if I had to be straightforward with you. And this is actually a good chapter for those people to actually read. Okay. at the end of the day, at the end of the day, the Buddha teaches will guide us, and he will tell us what we should do and what principles we should keep. But we have to really sit back and understand and learn what it is that we're asking. You see what I'm saying? What you in Buddhism is like all relationships with religion is one that is going to be immediate give and take. You will get what you put into it. And that is the purpose of this actual scenario. That I believe one of the things that I took away from that was that's what I honestly believed at that point, because when you are asking a higher power to point out a sign, that means you've done everything that you can do, and wisdom at that point was power. Okay, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that at least that's my interpretation of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I mean, you want to do everything you can within your own power, and then like again, once you've gotten to the end, you're like, hey Buddha, I've done everything possible. Please help me. I'm gonna throw this over to you.
Mm-hmm. Because the reason why is because there is times where people can account that they would want to decry how Buddha was wrong, how Buddha was incorrect, how he was flawed in his thinking. The reason being is because of the fact that they took what his responses a lot of times until they started painfully learning he was actually not joking. He was legitimately telling them what they were supposed to hear. There's a lot of people who at that time did not have that kind of belief in Shakyamuni the Prince, because they thought it was a publicity stunt, because he left his home to go live among the people. You see what I'm saying? What right. Prince in their right mind really does that? So this is also one of those things that also attests to the actual understanding, because in the mindset, you already know what's being said about you. You already know how things are. All of this stuff is going to be coming at you. You've got to still keep your mind clear to keep your message going across, because your actions will reflect your thoughts. You know what I mean? Every action you do, you're supposed to be consciously thinking of it. Right. So in this specific Diamond Sutra, what that teaches at that point on multiple levels is every action you commit, it reflects on who you are, how you treat people, how you talk to people, how you deal with people, how you deal with what you got going on, and how you deal with it around the world. You know what I mean? And when you start harboring too much negativity, eventually it starts reflecting right back out at the world, and everything you start doing starts having this aura of negativity around you. And that is that's an actual understanding of the discipline of thought. And that was one of the reasons why I appreciate the Diamond Sutra, because out of all of them, that one is what reflects the most out of that. You know what I mean? See through all the crazy stuff.
Right. Awesome, brother. Well, we're through chapter 2. People know you. People kind of know what we're doing. I invite anybody to reach out, to Sam. But this is something that I'm going to look to continue. I'll probably set up some events with the two of us, and in the same format, just some Facebook Lives. And I will also encourage anybody, if they want to join if they want to join us in Zoom, we'll set up some dates once we figure out what they are. But I couldn't wait anymore. To just kind of jump into this. It just seemed like it just this is something you and I have talked about, I think, for a few months now.
Yeah. Definitely. I enjoy talking to you, Brandon. I really do. Like I said, I mean, I always like having conversations about Buddhism. That's my thing. You know what I mean? Because there are people that know things about certain forms and practices of Buddhism that I just completely miss. I don't know. You know what I mean? And it's nice to see them, because especially when they lay them out, because it's so much. You see how diverse the actual understanding of what true Buddhism is, and you see how diverse it really, really is. It's like all the different sects of Christianity and stuff like that, and you see that, and it's like it's completely. It's almost like you just see all these different ones around, and that's why I like having those conversations with people, and I hope I made sense.
Absolutely, brother. No, that was great. I'm gonna actually kill our live for now. Again, guys, reach out to Sam. He's also got the Reverend Tink page. Let him know you said thanks. Let him know if you've got some questions about Buddhism. Well, I think that there are a number of people that do. And we don't have a reliable or somebody that we can know, like, and trust to have those questions answered by. And I'm sure that if you've got questions for him that he's not familiar with and isn't able to directly address, he probably knows one or two people that he can steer you towards. Am I right?
Yeah, I'll do my best. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, I'm putting you on the line.